Okay, hey everybody. We are so glad that you guys are here. We appreciate you guys taking the time out of your week to hang out with us. We are going to go ahead and just kind of get started as we have a strict 45 minutes with you guys. We just want to give you as much information as possible. So you are going to hear from 3 universities tonight. One being Gardner-Webb, Campbell, and Winthrop. We just kind of want to give you an insight to what life is like at a smaller school that offers Division I athletics. So we are going to talk about the NCAA and the Big South Conference, benefits of being a student athlete, and then the benefits of being a student athlete at a smaller institution, and then as well as athletic atmosphere and athletic opportunities for non-athletes. We are going to try to give you as much information as possible, but as you guys think of questions or questions comes to mind, you can go ahead and type them in the chat. We're going to wait to answer those questions at the end, just so we can kind of get through everything. But as you think of them, just go ahead and type them in there, and then we can get to them at the end. If we do run out of time, or you think of something after this webinar is over, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Our contact information will be on the last slide. We would love to connect with you guys and answer any questions you guys have. But with that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Hope Saunders, and I am a Gardner-Webb University alumni as well as an admissions counselor. I graduated in 2018 with a degree in communications, and I was also a member of the women's swim team while I was here as well.
And hey guys, I'm Eli Manus. I'm a senior admissions counselor for Campbell University. They call me a two-hump camel because I got my undergrad and my master's degree at Campbell. And with that said, I may look semi put together in my picture there, but I was the crazy sports fan in the orange and black body paint at all the home football games, things like that. So I was that sports fanatic and what we call the camel crazies at Campbell.
And hey everyone, my name is Ty Robbins. I'm an admissions counselor at Winthrop University, a public university in South Carolina. And in my time at Winthrop, I was the college mascot. So it was really awesome to be a part of the athletics perspective as a part of their staff.
And so we'll actually begin and continue on with kind of a general introduction to college athletics and what that looks like. So that kind of big question, what is college athletics? What does that look like at our school's levels, but also at other levels, right? So to give you a quick overview, we're all Gardner-Webb, Campbell, as well as Winthrop. We're all Division I schools as a part of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, better known as the NCAA. So many of you have probably seen the NCAA tournament, things along those lines. Of course, our schools do receive automatic bids to those tournaments. So that is something that's always fun to cheer for. You will see some of our schools in the big dance for March Madness, but also for other individual championships, things like that. But we do play at what's called the highest level, NCAA Division I. So out of 1,098 NCAA sanctioned institutions, roughly 32% of those play at the Division I level. So 350 institutions in the entire country are Division I. So that is something that you will see those top tier athletics, things like that. As you can see, there are 26 different Division I conferences. And we just made the note, and as you know, these are the biggest and the best funded, the most viewed. So if you're hoping to see your future college on ESPN, right, or on ESPN Plus, or any of those kind of large broadcasting networks, those are the schools that you're going to want to attend to see those kind of experiences. With that said, again, it is the highest level of athletic experience, as Hope and as Ty can mention to you from their experiences as well. But you will get that experience at Gardner-Webb, at Winthrop, at Campbell University with the Division I. And then again, we do have 15 Division I AA conferences in the NCAA. Many times this is in reference to the football championship series, better known as FCS. So some of our schools compete in the FCS in terms of football. And you may actually see just a little bit of us, some of us on TV, maybe on Friday night at 7:30, but that's just a shameless Campbell plug there. But to give you an idea, that is something that you will see us on those highest levels. Gardner-Webb, Winthrop, and Campbell are Division I and compete at those highest levels overall for the NCAA. So on this next slide, we do want to expand on that and kind of tell you a little bit more about our conference and how you can get that Division I athletic experience and all those kind of things in a smaller mid-major conference. So the Big South is a small to mid-size, what we would consider a mid-major conference for Division I. At the top, you'll see some of the logos for our schools, right? So you can see Campbell University in North Carolina, Charleston Southern University is in South Carolina, Gardner-Webb in North Carolina as well. Hampton University is in Virginia, High Point University in North Carolina. And then we go to the other side, Longwood University in Virginia, Presbyterian in South Carolina, Radford in Virginia, as well as UNC Asheville is in North Carolina. USC Upstate, as well as Winthrop University, are both in South Carolina. And then we are actually adding one full-time member in the 2021 season in NC A&T, another North Carolina school. So you will see that the Big South is a lot of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia-based regional rivalries, which really adds an increased level to that competition, that athletic experience, right? It's always nice to have those local kind of rivalries and things like that. 5 of our institutions are in North Carolina, 4 of those in South Carolina, and then 3 of those are in Virginia as well. So you'll see a lot of that kind of rivalry amongst our Division I athletic conference. It is important to note that the Big South is North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, but it is also at that Division I level. We do have 3 associate members as well. These associate members are actually mainly for football or considered football only schools. So that's Robert Morris, as well as you will see the University of North Alabama for football, Monmouth University, and as well as then you do have Kennesaw State for football. So you'll see some of those out-of-state rivalries in terms of not just North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, but also New Jersey, Alabama, some of those as well. So we do see some of that extra out-of-state competition as well. There are 19 sanctioned men's and women's athletic sports. So that is something where you will have plenty of opportunity to pursue those athletic opportunities, those athletic performances that you would like to see as well. So of course your men's and women's basketball, your football, baseball, soccer, so on and so forth. Many great athletic opportunities there. But one key note we want you to realize, all of these at this Division I level, there's an average enrollment of approximately 4,800 students. So we're talking about that small to mid-size range. Each of us can tell you our universities differ a little bit from that number, right? There's some private schools, some public schools in our conference, but to have an average of 4,800 students really tells you that you're going to have that intimate one-on-one kind of connection. You're going to be able to network with some of your fellow student athletes and things like that. Those are things that you get that small school feel, but you're not having to forego the big school opportunity. And that's what we'll talk about on this next slide, are some of those opportunities and benefits for you as a student. So not just as a student athlete, but students as a whole, regardless if you are an athlete or if you're just a student in the fan and a fan in the stands like I was. So say you want to be one of those camel crazies, or you want to be a part of these different experiences. You can see the top right corner, the top left is actually at Gardner-Webb, one of their football games. And then we've got Winthrop and the mascot there, right? And that's something then in the center, of course, at one of our football games at Campbell. So you will get those legitimate game day experiences as a part of the Big South and one of our member institutions. One key note to note is that your admission to sporting events, that student tickets are not limited for most of the events at our schools. So because of our size, we're actually able to accommodate better our students in terms of being a part of that game day experience. You may have heard of before, at some larger institutions, just because of the sheer size, they may have to implement what are known as lottery systems. So lottery systems, say a big rival is coming into town, it can be a little bit difficult for those schools to guarantee seating for their students. They may have to wait and hope and pray that they're able to get to that rivalry game. At our schools, for the most part, you're never going to see that. It's in essence, guaranteed admission into those games, and you get to see those top tier, no matter who we're playing, no matter who that top tier opponent is. You're a part of that game day experience, and you're a valued part of that game day experience. So that's something that we definitely wanted to share with you. But one thing that's really cool as well as a student, I know I got to know some of our student athletes and the members of the basketball team or football, baseball, tennis. they were the people I sat next to in my class. They were the people that, I hung out with in some of the clubs and opportunities, the things outside of school as well. And when you're in that smaller to mid-sized school range, these are people that you are networking with on a day-to-day basis. So that's something where you're able to make teams. You're not only supporting your alma mater, you're not only supporting your favorite school and your favorite school colors, you're supporting your friends. You're supporting those people that you know. And that's something that's really kind of cool to see. And many times as well, our schools mean so much to our local communities that you do see a larger sense of community and personal connection to the team. So that's something that we like to share and wanted to make sure that you know that even though you're in that small to mid-sized range, you still will get that legitimate game day experience, but you also get the benefit of getting to know those players on a much more personal level as well. And then one last thing we wanted to highlight in terms of benefits for students is in regards to employment. And maybe you want a future career with athletics, or maybe you're looking for a part-time job. It's really cool and to see if you're passionate about those athletics, the different opportunities to work with our athletic departments. We're able to provide some of those a little bit more easily for our students. Some of the examples you'll see at the bottom, say you wanted to be a team manager, right? I had a close personal friend who was a team manager for our basketball team, got to travel with the team, see the ins and outs, see what it's like in terms of the operations of a team. So if you're thinking about being an athletic director maybe one day, or maybe even a head coach, those are really valuable experiences to have. Maybe that's being a mascot, and Ty mentioned earlier, and his experience as a mascot and as a student athlete in those ways. That's a really kind of cool way to represent not only your community and your school, but really, take that message outside of that community and really even on a national stage at times. Social media. I know many of you may be, proficient on social media and things like that. We're looking for student interns and things like that to help and to promote our schools in those ways, and maybe even a broadcasting team. We do get, ESPN televised events. ESPN Plus has a partnership with the Big South. So a lot of great opportunities to really work at the highest stage overall. So just a few of the highlights that we wanted to mention too. But with that, I'll actually turn it over to my fellow colleague, and we'll continue on with some of the next slides that we have here.
Hey, okay, so I am going to go ahead and talk about kind of how all this relates to a student athlete perspective. So I was on the Gardner Webb swim team all 4 years of my college experience. So I kind of got an inside look as to what that is like. So I just kind of wanted to share that with you guys. From an athletic standpoint, you are getting, amazing training, because you are working with coaches who have years of experience and reputable success, but you also have access to the best equipment and facilities, whether that's, a great arena or a field or weightlifting equipment, things like that. You have all of that access to you, and it's really, really great. And kind of also going off of what Eli just said, being in that more intimate sporting environment, whether you're an athlete or a fan, like, who you're cheering for and they know who's cheering for them, which is really awesome. So I kind of got both of that as a fan and as an athlete. I got to see my professors and my friends and people from the local restaurants come and watch me swim, which was really, really cool. Another really great thing about a smaller institution with Division I athletics is that you do get, there are athletic scholarships available. And that doesn't always happen for Division II and Division III. So that will all be worked out through the coaches. That is not through the admissions office, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later. But there are scholarships available even for these small schools too. But from an academic standpoint, Eli did mention that, average of around 4,800 students on campus. So you really do get that one-on-one attention from your professors, from the academic support staff and campus staff. So you will not, be anonymous. Like, you will be your first and last name. Everybody on campus does know you. You're not a student sitting in a giant lecture hall or an ID number. I've had professors invite us over for dinner before, or buy us all coffee before the final. You kind of have that intimate learning environment as well, which I truly, benefited from. just kind of getting that one-on-one. I was never afraid to raise my hand and ask a question in class or go to my professor's office hours. So I was just kind of set up for success, both athletically and academically. And another really great perk about being an athlete on campus is that you do get first pick of classes, which is awesome. So typically when you're registering for the next semester, it kind of goes by seniority, but athletes will always have the first pick because we kind of have to plan for our practice schedule and weights and travel and things like that. So we'll kind of get first pick on what classes to take and the times you can take them. And then it'll start with the seniors and the juniors and the sophomores and the freshmen. So that's kind of a good perk as well. And as I'm sure you guys all know, if you are an athlete in high school right now, time management is a really big key to success with being an athlete and a student. And so having a history of really great time management skills and then kind of refining those skills in college, you are set up for success. So as you can see from the statistic down here, last year in the Big South Conference, over almost 65% of the student athletes had 3.0 GPA or higher. And so that's a really great resume booster. Being an athlete and having a successful GPA is really phenomenal. And I know from personal experience, like employers do really find that beneficial. Now kind of moving on to the next section, it's easy to kind of think that maybe there is this misconception that as if you go to a smaller school, you cannot go, past, like that'll be your highest level. And that is not the case. So as you can see here, these are just kind of 3 examples of students who have gone to our schools and then have gone on to make it big. So if you are looking to have that next level of athleticism and take your athletic career to the next step, you definitely can do that too. A more common name you may know is Steph Curry. He went to Davidson, which is just up the road in Charlotte, a school very similar in size to the universities that are here tonight. And he has had the most success. So if that's something that you are looking for, you can definitely find that too. And I will also turn it over to the next presenter.
All right, hey everybody. I was juggling with some of my settings there. But speaking of all these people who have made it big, I know Eli mentioned earlier that there are 19 Division I sports available within the Big South Conference. There are some sports that are that are available through other avenues as well. So the Big South isn't able to sanction certain sports, and those are going to fall under different conferences. So you might be going to a university of our size and be competing in a different conference from the NCAA Division I Big South Conference. A great example of that, Winthrop University started our esports program last year, and they play in the NACE division, which is a national association for competitive esports. That is something that is run across the nation. They play schools all the way from here in the Southeast, all the way up into the Pacific Northwest, competing for different events. Hope actually was not a part of a sport that was collectively here in the Big South. She was actually a part of CCSA, the Coastal Collegiate Sports Association, which runs the swim conference that Gardner-Webb is a part of. And then also you have conferences that are based around hockey, a sport that's not really prevalent in the Southeast. So if you are interested in any of these sports, if you have years of experience in these, definitely look for schools that are a part of these programs, because they still offer you a very, very competitive Division I-esque level of training. It's just not going to be through the NCAA, because the NCAA doesn't necessarily support those programs as fully as these will. Now, when you are a part of a sports program, regardless of what sport it is, you are going to be representing the school, you're going to be representing the sport, and you are going to be representing a community. And these communities vary in size. You have small schools in the Big South that are going to be within a larger city. You have smaller schools that are going to be within rural areas. So the people that are coming to your sporting events, they could be the 60-year-old couple that have had season tickets for the past 20, 25 years, and they love going to the games. You also have young potential mentees, students and kids who want to be the next superstar playing on the court, the field, or in the pool. So it's really you representing the university and the sport as a whole and becoming a great role model for a lot of people. I think something that Eli, Hope, and myself mentioned a lot is when the big rival comes into town, the town seems to grow in size a little bit. You go out to the Coliseum or to the field and the parking lot's full. You have tons of people in there from maybe the remainder of the city, but also from out of state to come watch this game. And you even see ESPN show up to some of our games. I mean, we had a game against Duke a couple of years, or actually it was last year, and stadium was packed. You saw us on your major networks, and it was a really, really great environment to be a part of, both as a student and also as a student athlete. And as a student athlete, you are going to be supporting the local community as they support you. They come to your games, and in response, you are there at these different camps that are being hosted by different college coaches. One of our camps that we host every single year is run by our men's basketball coach, Pat Kelsey. And our men's basketball players go out there consistently and they teach and train these students, these kids, to be the best at what they are. So if you want that sense of fulfillment of giving back to the community, teaching the next generation of superstars, being a college athlete can really help you, especially at these smaller schools where your camps are going to have maybe 50 students, not 200 or 300. In addition to that, you're going to get engaged in the community with these various different organizations. You'll see here in this picture, this is actually a track and field team that is helping out with a food drive that's going on in their city. And with many small colleges, your coaches are going to ask for you to get involved with these in order to bond as a team, in order to bond with the community, and really grow the support and foster the community that is around your city itself. Now, we were discussing a lot of questions that we get here in the Office of Admissions. We get a lot of questions about athletics and how you can be an athlete, what you need to do in order to be most successful. So we've tried to compile as many of those questions as possible. And I am going to lean on Hope a little bit on these because she's got the firsthand experience in some of these. Let's go ahead and get started with what does it look like to be recruited? And that's definitely going to be different based on the sport that you're competing in. Football is a little bit different in terms of their recruitment style than maybe swimming or esports or basketball. So it's definitely going to be dependent on the recruitment season in which coaches are allowed to come and see you. Generally, students will start talking to coaches within their junior year, but some sports, it's more common for students to start talking to coaches in their senior year. So if you're a senior right now and you're looking to join a sports team, you can definitely continue to reach out to those coaches. But with that, Hope, can you give them a little bit of insight as to how you were recruited as a college athlete?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of a couple different ways that coaches can kind of go about it. So, they can send you a letter or give you a phone call and they're like, hey, I saw, your profile on such and such. Like there was a college swimming website. So you can have a profile on there and they can kind of search students and athletes there. And so they can say, we're interested in you. Would you like to come on a trip? Things like that. And then you can also, what I did for a couple of the schools that I was looking at as well, was I went on to their website and they either have the coach's contact information, like an email or a phone number, or for example, Gardner Webb, we have a questionnaire so that you'll fill out, if for example, for swimming, I gave the events I typically swim, my times, my history with the sport, things like that. And so that kind of puts you on the coach's radar and lets them know that you are interested. And from there, they can kind of reach out to you and you guys can kind of talk about what you're looking for in a school and in an athletic program, the coach's coaching styles, things like that. And then after that, you can kind of choose 5 schools to go on recruiting trips for. So the NCAA allows you to pick 5 official recruiting trips to go on. Of course, you can go, visit the school and take tours and have it not be an official visit. But typically a recruiting trip looks like you meeting with a student in the admissions office on Friday. You'll get a tour and then you'll spend the whole weekend with the team. So you'll see them practice. You'll, do what they do on weekends, whether that's going to a midnight cookout run or going to the movies, or you can just kind of see what their team dynamic is like. And like I said, you can pick 5 schools to do that with. And then from there, you can kind of narrow down your search and figure out which school is best for you.
Thank you, Hope. Yeah, so when you're really in that recruitment process, you definitely need to be reaching out to those coaches and starting some of those official visits that are going to help you gain a spot on that team. And during that recruitment trip, what we tend to hear from a lot of our coaches is you're trialing the team, but they're also trying you out. They're trying to see how you're going to get involved with the team, how you're going to mesh with the unit, and really be a synchronous team and work together, whether it's an individual sport or a team sport, because both really matter. Now, going on into our next question, who do you contact if you're looking to be recruited or if you're looking to be a college athlete? And there are a lot of people you can contact on a college campus. However, if you are looking for information regarding a team sport, you should definitely contact the coach. We are able to give you a lot of information on admissions information. So Hope, Eli, and myself work on the college application process. And you will need to apply for that college in order to play on the team. However, if you are looking to get recruited, talk to the coach and also talk to the assistant coaches as well. Because oftentimes if a coach is really, really busy with travel or recruitment or game time, those assistant coaches are going to be the individuals who help the coach find those next prospects and really fill that team roster. Now, why should students be considering a small Division I school? And, hopefully you kind of gathered some of the perks throughout this entire presentation, but ultimately choosing a small Division I really reflects your skill level. If you're a student who is very, very good in your sport, however, you want to have a smaller college experience, maybe looking at a small D1 is a good option for you. Or if you're a student who is a very strong candidate for playing in college, but maybe you're not at that top tier, then choosing a small Division I school can be in your best interest. We tend to see a little bit of both. We have some monumental players who could choose to go anywhere, play at a smaller D1 school. And we also have players who are right at their level of expertise, right in the competition, and both will do very, very well at a small Division I school. Ultimately, you're going to have the benefits of having a tight-knit academic and social community alongside competing at a very high level. Now, when you are a student athlete, it is basically like having a part-time job. And Hope is going to hop back on here in a second and tell you guys a little bit about her experience with how training and travel goes. But I can tell you from my experience working with registering student athletes for classes, student athletes have a lot of time that they have to set out of their day in order to be a student athlete. You're going to have practices at least 5 days a week usually. And on top of that, you're going to be traveling to various competitions, whether it's a meet, as you will see with cross country, track, and swimming, or it's going to be individual game events where you're going to be traveling to a rival school or they'll be traveling to you. And with that, you're going to need to work through the schedule with your professors as you go through the semester. I would say that good rule of thumb is you're probably going to be practicing for at least 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And then over the weekend, you can expect 1 day of practice. But Hope, can you give them a little bit of insight as to how your practice schedule looked?
Yeah, so as a guideline, the NCAA kind of limits the amount of practicing that athletes can do. So they cap it at 25 mandatory hours. So coaches can say, hey, we need you for 25 hours out of the week. And then from there, they could offer optional practices that you can choose to go to or to not go to. But as an example, for swimming, I had morning practice 3 days a week. That was 2 hours each time. So right around like from 5 to 7, we had morning practice, and then we'd either go to weights or go to breakfast. So you had a practice before your day really even started, before your first class. And then you would go to class all day, or not all day, but you'd go to your classes for that day. And then you'd have an afternoon practice as well. So we had afternoon practices every day of the week for 2.5 hours roughly. And then we had 3 morning practices for 2 hours, and then 3 1-hour weight sessions throughout the week. And then as well as a practice on Saturday. So it obviously will vary sport to sport and like weight room availability and things like that. But that was kind of like my schedule. And so, going to practice every afternoon, but if I needed to be late to a practice, or if I was going to be gone for our conference our conference meet that was like 4 days, that took a whole week of classes. It was my responsibility, and it will be your responsibility to stay in communication with your coaches and your professors. They will be very understanding as long as you are, upfront, open, saying, hey, this practice, I may be a couple minutes late because I have a lab that runs a little bit late on Wednesdays. Or, hey, professor, like, I am going to be gone this day and this day for us to meet. Do I need to take this test or quiz or turn this assignment in early, or can I turn it in after? You won't be penalized for missing because of athletic events, but you just need to, again, stay in constant communication with your professors and your coaches, and you'll be just fine.
Thank you, Hope. Yeah, it's definitely going to take a little bit of juggling. Ultimately, it's going to make you a stronger student. And I think with my interactions with many of our student athletes, you'll see that they have really great time management skills because they have to attend these various practices that are within a certain time slot, and they'll have to go to these weight trainings as they can as well. Now, moving on, how do athletic scholarships work? Now, athletic scholarships are definitely going to vary by sport and by school. A good way of thinking about it, athletic scholarship or athletic teams each have budgets that they have to work within. So schools will allocate certain amount of funds to each team to award as scholarships to their players. And it's going to depend how much money you get is going to depend on how many individuals are on the team, how many individuals are going to be required to have a full-time or a full scholarship. And also it's going to reflect a little bit on your performance as well. If you're one of those individuals who's going to start freshman year and start all 4 years, you might be more competitive for a scholarship than, say, if you were to redshirt your freshman year and then earn it later on. Scholarships are definitely something that your coach can work with you on. And when you are speaking with the various coaches or coaching staffs as you are looking to be recruited, it's okay to ask them about scholarships. In fact, I would recommend ask them what the opportunities look like within your position, within your skill level, and that will help you make a determination as to where you can go to college. But at the Division I level, you are going to see that athletic scholarships are available. And some sports will require a certain number of full-time, full-ride scholarships for their teams in order to be Division I qualified. Now, the real question that a lot of students have, and one that I don't think they ask too much, but one that is definitely pertinent, is what does it take to be a Division I college athlete? And obviously it's going to take a good amount of skill within your sport, but something that I want to touch on more so than that is actually your academics. In order to be a Division I athletics athlete, you have to be a good student. Yes, you have to, of course, be good in your sport, but one thing that we see often is that a student will focus on those athletics and those academics, and they're not only getting those athletic scholarships, but they're also getting those academic scholarships. So it makes school a lot more feasible financially, and on top of that, it's going to mean that you're successful in your time as a student and after you've graduated. It's important to balance both your academics and your athletics as a student athlete. On top of that, you definitely need to be someone who is able to mesh well with a team, a new team. You're coming into a new environment where you might be competing as an individual, or you're competing within a team sport, and you have to work with those other individuals that are on your group, on your team, in practices, in the actual events themselves. And coaches will look for that. So when it really boils it down to those last candidates, the athletes that can come into a team, compete well in the classroom, and mesh well with the team are going to be the top candidates for Division I college athletics. And with that, that's actually the end of our presentation here today. We've allotted some time for you guys so that you can ask us questions, and hopefully we can provide some insight. I did see we had one question. Hope, Eli, did you guys want to cover that?
Sure, I can definitely jump in and help with that question. And thank you for submitting that question, Sean. In terms of like club sports and club athletics, that's a great question. From school to school, those will vary in terms of the offerings. I know, for instance, at Campbell, right, we have 40 different intramural sports. My personal favorite is called mud volleyball, which is one of the funnest unconventional sports you'll play. But in terms of club sports, right, club sports are still that intercollegiate competition. It still provides that very competitive nature, but it's that step down, right, maybe from Division I athletics. So when I would encourage you to do in terms of like tryouts and things like that, Many times our schools, and Ty, and hope y'all may be able to attest to this as well, with campus recreation, a lot of the club sports are facilitated through a campus recreation organization on our campus. So I definitely would encourage you. I know Campbell provides the contact information for those club sports and the club presidents in those ways. Definitely, you'll see a lot of your kind of conventional ones, right? Like a basketball, a soccer, things like that. I know we've got a club flag football team. We've even got a club rugby team. So that's a really cool one as well. But that's a great option for students, especially if you feel like maybe you're in that case like me, where I was a solid baseball player in high school, but I didn't think I was quite Division One, but I did want to continue playing and in a competitive way. So that's a great question. I would encourage you to look at those university websites, find those contacts, reach out to your admissions counselor, and maybe they can point you in the right direction as well.
Thank you, Eli. Yeah, and that's something we haven't really touched on too much in this presentation. But even if you decide that you don't want to play on a Division I sports team, there are plenty of avenues in which you can continue to play whatever sport you're interested in. And we always mix those conventional sports like basketball, football, soccer, with some unconventional sports in those club sports. As Eli mentioned, they've got mud volleyball. We actually have a fencing team, and we also had a Quidditch team. So if you guys have ever seen here, we had a Quidditch team that was actually a combination of Winthrop students, Coastal Carolina students, and UNC Wilmington students, all competing on that team. Now, one step down from club that most colleges will offer as well is going to be your intramural sports. And a good way of thinking about intramural sports is that you're only competing against other students at that university. So at the intramural level, it's more so for fun. You're going to maybe go to a dodgeball game or kickball. Those tend to be two very popular intramural sports at Winthrop. That club level, you are going to travel around and you're going to compete. So as Eli mentioned, if he went to the club baseball team, you might end up traveling to a local rival college and compete against their team. Or you're going to go to these regional regional tournaments where multiple teams will congregate in one area and play a tournament weekend. So if you don't think you're at that level to play Division I, club sports are a great way to occupy your time and a great way to stay physically fit while you're in college. Now, let's see. I think that was the one question I saw. Unfortunately, since I'm presenting, I can't see much else. Oh, but I did want to touch on tryouts as well, Eli. So I know all of our schools do have the opportunity for students to try out. To give you guys a little bit of insight into what can happen as a student who is not on a team initially, we actually had a gentleman who was on our basketball team's team staff. And he was on our team staff for 3 years. He was a practice dummy. Essentially, they would throw him into these situations where he would be guarding against some of our players, or he would have to mount an offensive against our team. And eventually, he just, playing with these guys week in, week out as a team manager, he got to that level where he was able to earn himself a slot on that team. And in his senior year, he had playtime. He was playing on that team, competing at that Division I level, even though he wasn't there initially. Because he was with that team so often, he was able to build up his skill set to the point where he could compete against the biggest and the best players. Now, I think that was the only question that we had. Let's see. Is it competitive where cuts are made? And now, in terms of where cuts are made for tryouts with many of these teams, it is going to be more competitive than what you might see at a high school or a club level right now. When teams are looking to fill spots on their team, the coaches are generally going to try to find recruits to fill those slots. And they might receive a scholarship initially, or they might be offered a scholarship later down the line. But generally, coaches are going to try to fill those slots on the bench pretty quickly before the semester even starts, because they don't want to be lacking in one particular area. So to use Hope, for example, if Gardner-Webb's swim team didn't have somebody who could do the freestyle event, it's going to definitely hurt them. So they're going to try to find those people before the semester starts. That being said, there's always going to be the potential for 1 or 2 extra people joining that team in certain areas. So if you are interested in trying out, definitely reach out to the coaching staff. not only prior to attending, but also when you first get there, because sometimes there are cases where students can join a team later on after earning that spot. All right, and with that, I think that's the end of our questions for today. If you guys have any questions though, please feel free to put them in our chat. Otherwise, we do have our 3 contact information pieces up here. Feel free to call us, obviously, but with us, I know that Eli and myself have a text number up there, and Garner Webb definitely has some ways that you can reach out to them. With everything going on right now with college admissions and recruitment, I think it is important to note, since we are Division I programs, COVID has affected our coaching ability to actually go out and scout at various tournaments. So if you are interested in playing at a higher level, definitely reach out to these coaches this year, because this year more than most, it's going to be important for you as the athlete to showcase your abilities. So go ahead, make sure you are taking those film recordings, packaging them, and sending them off to these coaches, whether it's highlight reel or full game footage. And also make sure you take the time and actually call the coaches. I know that's one thing that a lot of coaches are going to get emails and emails and emails all day. But when you sit down and you call a coach, it shows that you have the energy and the time and the passion to really play for that team. And that might be the thing that sets you apart. So if we can give you any piece of advice that can help you with your recruitment, definitely look at call and get in touch with that coach so that they know your name. But with that, Hope, Eli, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add as a piece of advice for students potentially looking to join a sports team?
Yes, and I kind of going off of kind of what you said, Ty, is even more so now with COVID is starting early. There are a certain amount of spots on the team. There is a certain amount of scholarship money, and once it's gone, it's gone. So if you are passionate and this is what you want to do, start yesterday.
Yeah, and I would say too, and Hope you may be able to attest to this as well. With private institutions, even if you're looking at potentially maybe walking on or as a preferred walk-on at those institutions, definitely, even if you're not maybe afforded an athletic scholarship, definitely talk to those schools about if there is any kind of merit-based scholarship or academic-based scholarship, because I've seen students that have actually come as a walk-on, but because of their grades and their standing at a private institution and some publics as well, those scholarships in terms of their merit-based scholarships are able to really close that gap more so where it's not as much about the finances at that point, but about the best place for you as a student athlete if you were walking on or things like that. So that would be probably one of my other tips, just to think about those academic scholarships that may be available as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And with that, we are going to close out for you guys right here. Where we're rolling close to that 45-minute time period. And as we said earlier, if you guys do have any questions, please reach out to us. All of our offices are equipped to help you with your questions regarding the admissions process, and we can definitely try to help you with those contacts with athletics. And if you just have general questions about athletics, not with our particular institutions, you can also reach out to us and we can provide as much insight as we can. But with that, with the college admissions process going on strong right now, if you are a senior, highly recommend you keep working on those college applications. We're about 2 weeks now away from the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And that's definitely something you can look at working on in the coming months, and continue reaching out to these coaching staffs. Try to figure out what you can do in order to be the best candidate for that next slot on their team. But with that, guys, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will stick around until our time's over just to answer any questions. I'm going to turn my mic and my video off, so I'll keep an eye on this ticker and see if any questions pop up.